We're looking to find the zeros on this one. And the first thing that we want to do when we try to find zeros on any of these is to graph them on our graphing calculator. Just plug this in right here for y equals. And then we can graph it and we can look and try to see where these zeros are. So I went ahead and plugged this one in just to save a little bit of time here. So I plugged this one in and here's the exact equation. I've got it down here. Now what I want to do here is I want to try to identify where my zeros are. So I can see that it crosses the x-axis right here. So what I'm going to do is hit second trace and look for zeros. Zeros is option number 2, so I'm going to scroll down to number 2 and hit enter. And it asks that I be on the left-hand side of this. Well, I don't see my cursor yet, but I look over here and it says x equals 0, so it's probably down here somewhere. I just can't quite see it. So I'm going to go to the right, and I'm going to keep going until, oh, there I see it. Okay, now I just need it on this side of the intersection point on the left-hand side, and it's there now, so I'm going to hit enter. Then now it says right bound, so now I need to go over to the right-hand side of it. Now my calculator is nice because it gives me a dotted line telling me where my first one was. Yours may or may not, depending on what model you have, but that's okay, it still works the same. So now I'm on the right-hand side, I hit enter. It asks to guess, and I hit enter one more time, and it tells me that my 0 is right at 3. Okay, so I know I've identified one of the zeros for this particular problem. It is at 3. So now I'm going to go back to my original problem here, and I found one zero. The 0 is 3. Once you identify one of the zeros, now what I have to do is I have to do synthetic division. To try to simplify this, I'm going to pull out essentially one of my zeros out of here. So I'm going to pull out the 3. So I set up my synthetic division. Remember, with synthetic division I take all of my coefficients. This is a 1, -7, 17, and -15. And I do my synthetic division off of that. Now, just to save time, I'm going to kind of fast forward through the synthetic division portion of that. And there's what it looks like after you do your synthetic division. Your remainder is 0, which indicates that this is indeed a 0 on it. 3 does work. So now I can rewrite this one. It's a 0. My 5 is going to be my constant now, and I'll write them in -4. It'll be -4x, okay? And you can see this 5 is my constant, -4x, and the next one would be x squared. If I had another one over here, it'd be x cubed, but I don't, and that's the only one I've got. So now I'm stuck at this point, and I look at this and I say, okay, this is good, but now let's see if I can factor it. I've got to have two numbers that multiply together to give me 5, but add together to give me -4. Well, -5 and 1 gives me -4, but unfortunately that multiplies together to give me -5, so that doesn't work. Quickly I identified that this one is not factorable. And you'll have these on your homework, and if it cannot be factored, then what you have to do is you have to plug it into the quadratic formula. So I first identify my a, b, and c. And then once I've identified the a, b, and c, I look at plugging it into that quadratic formula. And here it is plugged in. Remember, it's -b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So I'm just plugging each one of these values in for that quadratic formula, and I'm looking at simplifying it at this point. -4 squared gives me 16, and then -4 times 1 is obviously -4. So -4 times 5 would give me -20. So I simplify it just a little bit further here, and I get 16 minus 20, and 16 minus 20 inside of my radical here is going to give me a -4. Simplify it just a little bit further here, and we know what the square root of -4 is. That's an imaginary number. So at this point I have 4 plus or minus 2i all over 2. Well, here I can look to simplify this. This is the same thing as 4 plus 2i divided by 2 and 4 minus 2i divided by 2. Okay, now in here you can just keep it in this one if you want. There's nothing wrong with that. And from here I look at this and I go, okay, I've got a 4 here, a 2 here, and a 2 here. So I look and try to identify if there's anything that goes into all three of those. Well, a 2 goes into all three of those. And if I divide the 4 by 2, that would leave me with just a plain old 2. If I divided this 2 by 2, that would leave me with 1. And if I divided this 2 by 2, it would leave me with 1. So essentially I'm left with 2 plus or minus 1i divided by 1. And if you remember, anything divided by 1 is itself. So that's basically going to leave me 2 plus or minus 1i, or 2 plus or minus I. Okay, so now what we want to do is we can simplify that one just a little bit further here. And that gives me 2 plus or minus I right here, okay? So now I know that I have a 3 as one of my answers. My other answer is 2 plus or minus I. So my two answers here are x equals 3 and 2 plus or minus I.